Wow. So amazing that people couldn't go out of their houses today. I think entrepreneurs are the only ones that will enjoy today. You know why I'm talking about this? Because it is actually a rainy day in Abuja. Could you believe that the rain started at 5 a.m. and didn't stop in my area until about 7:30 to 8?
I think that's what most residents in Abuja experienced this morning. It was quite a rainy morning.
I'm just wondering how the flood is going to be in Abuja, although we've not heard anything. Maybe as we're going through the papers, we'll get to know more details. My name is Ramsey Enoch, and it's good to have you right there. It's Outnumbered live on your screen on this beautiful Friday morning. TGIF. I know some federal government workers, civil servants, may not go to work today. They may say, oh, it's Friday, so we don't do much on Fridays, but then go to work, right? Let's take you through the headlines for the day. Good morning, Bright. Good morning, Michael. I need to say hi to you guys, even though we've talked. I've greeted. Leave that thing. All these things you come claiming on set all the time. All those titles, man. We need to see some things happening.
He's on the beat now.
Title with mouth. It's not it. So let's see the Ketesh coming out. All right, that's on the lighter note. Let's quickly take you through the headlines for the day, beginning from the Punch newspaper. A lot of stories on the Punch newspaper, but then I'm just going to be taking few out of it. A federal government plan 2 trillion naira economic revival scheme inaugurates council. Details read on page 21. Nigeria to host $5 billion African Energy Bank. Then this one says NNPC disagree as report puts petrol debt at $6 billion. You can get the details on the Punch newspaper, and that details is actually on page 21. Then the big story is about the flood. I talked about it before we got started. The way it rained in Abuja today, I don't know of your own area, but then in FCT, it is a heavy downpour.
It can't be compared to the torrential rain in Lagos.
No. Don't even talk about Lagos, because Lagos, rain in Lagos, if it wants to rain in Lagos, if rain means to rain in Lagos and Rivers State is something else. So I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the experience I had.
The Commissioner for Environment in Lagos said it rained for about 9 hours non-stop.
9
About
hours.
10 hours non-stop.
People won't go to work then.
Imagine.
People won't go to work. The big story is about flooding, and it says 10 states battling flooding, 21 others at risk. Federal government is sounding a warning right here. Just 4 riders to that story, and I will be done with the Punch newspaper. And the first rider says government fears cholera may worsen as Lagos, Abuja orders count losses. Of second rider says flooding kills a pupil. Then this one says rivers to overflow July. Ondo, Kaduna 70 orders to be affected too, not just Rivers State. Then the final rider to that story says flood sacks 10 Ogun communities. 10 communities. That's just 10. That's an Ogun state. I don't know of other states, but then maybe you just have to be careful this season. We'll talk more about that maybe later. Let's get to the next paper. Bright, which of the papers do we have right there?
With me this morning, I have the Daily Times newspaper, and we have some stories here. First story we have here is Court voids Edo PDP governorship primary. Court voids Edo PDP governorship primary. That's actually a very big story, because we know that the candidate for the PDP before, the one that they announced, was actually Aswe Igodalu. That was the one that they announced. But we know they have been having some
the way you call that
crisis.
Name, you're from Edo State,
yes.
I suppose. Okay.
They have been having some internal crisis for some time now, but I didn't know it would escalate to this extent. So that's actually a very sad one for PDP of Edo State. Then another story here is expect more river flooding, FG1 states and whole governments. Then the big story here today is that we won't sign pact detrimental to Nigerians, FG assures. This is coming from the uprising from social media yesterday, when people were giving backlash to the deal they signed with the Semua agreement. Now we have a write-up to the story which says agreement was signed to promote sustainable development and to fight climate change. You understand? This agreement was not signed to promote LGBTQ or what have you, according to what has been trending over social
media. I think Nigerians may not be totally wrong if the company has anything to do with LGBTQ, because if something is a law, it has to be law.
Yes.
But maybe because this discover that the company or the organization is viable and could boost the economy, they just sign whatever. But then if they are coming out to say whatever it is they've signed, that pact will not be detrimental to Nigerians, then good and fine. That's an assurance coming from the federal government.
Yes.
All right, go ahead, bro.
All right, I think that's all I have for this Daily Times. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Bright. We'll move straight to the Vanguard today. Above the head of federal government debt to petrol importers exceeds 9.1 trillion naira. Details on page 19. Edo Guba, PDP court wrestle over Ighodalo's candidacy. Details on page 7. Appeal court voice sack of Rivers Assembly Speaker Oweleketv, 24 orders. Details on page 8. Now the big story: 21 local governments in 10 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, submerged in flood. Details on page 5. That's a big story. We'll have about 2 headers to the story. 2 riders to the story. Says no release of water from dams. Cameroon's Lagdo Dam wants states, local government to safeguard lives of Nigerians. Nigerians were warned before this. That the Lagdo Dam will be open from Cameroon.
It happens, I think, every year,
Yeah,
and it floats into River Benue. I know of people who live very close to the river bank, and not so close, but then each year when this flood happens, a lot of houses are being submerged. People desert their environment, and nothing has been done about it.
I think this is also a very big factor to the flooding we are facing.
It's part of
over
it.
the country.
It's part of it.
Not just limited to the rain alone.
I think there should be some kind of dredging so that this water can be contained in the river. It's possible. It's something we can do.
Absolutely.
All right, go ahead, Michael.
Away from that, Lagos, 20,000 retirees receive 4.5 billion benefits. Details on page 8. JAMB uncovers 3,000 fake graduates. Interestingly, details on page 9. And the last story I'll take on the Vanguard today: kidnapping, federal government working seriously to secure ungoverned spaces. That's coming from NSA. Details on page 9. Do well to pick a copy of the Vanguard today and enjoy the stories there. Back to you, Ramsey.
Thank you very much, Michael, for those headlines. Let's quickly take you through the last headline that we have for the day, coming from the Daily Trust newspaper. Just one big story there, and I will be done because the whole page has been bought by the Federal Ministry of Works, putting up a public service announcement. The only story I have on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning is that federal government puts 18 states, federal Capital Territory on flood alert. That's FCT. I take that again. 2 riders to that story. Federal government puts 18 states and FCT on flood alert, meaning they should just be careful because anything can happen. Whatever the authorities need to do, they should do it ASAP. Then just 2 riders to that story says cholera escalation likely. The second one says our states roll out enlightenment campaigns. Details read on page 4. Then the other page is being bought over by the Federal Ministry of Works, putting up a public service announcement inviting stakeholders. They didn't pay for advertisement, so I won't go into details. This is going to be the size of the headlines this morning from here. You know what? We want to go on a quick break. After this break, we'll return back. The flood is worth talking about because oftentimes we hear of these things and proactive measures are not being taken, and we see these things coming. Now the Nigerians are going through so much. Do we deserve all of this? More coming after the break.
Follow us on our social media handles at Oweleketv. Visit our website at www.oweleketv for a thrilling journey. Oweleketv, rising star at the fairground.
Welcome back from that break. It is still Outnumbered live on your screen, reaching your life on the red from the reigning Federal Capital Territory this beautiful day. It is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. The big story is so big this morning. And of course, Michael and Bright will be adding their voice to the conversation because if I want to talk about this, it's going to take a whole day for me because my state has been affected and a whole lot of other states, and other states are also being affected. But then 10 states battling flooding, 21 others at risk. Federal government is warning, and they are scared. There's a cholera outbreak, and this is happening. And the connection between cholera and water. All right. So let's look at this now. Lagos, Abuja, and about 21 other states at risk. We have 36 states in Nigeria. Then right now, 10 states of battling flooding, then 21 others at risk. That is like 31 states right now at risk of flood. I don't know, but then let's just take a holistic view of this whole situation. This thing happened. This is not the first time. It happened last year. If you could remember the Bayelsa thing, it was I think it was more in Bayelsa as at last year. Was it last year or a year before? Then
not just last year, years before.
It's been happening.
The overflooding that happened in Kogi, and motorists could not travel. Remember, it came up to the bridge and swallowed most houses.
The bridge was even swallowed.
Yes, before you get to Banda, heading to Lokoja, most houses there, filling stations were swallowed by flooding. It's not the first time.
Can you imagine?
And in 3 years past, four years ago, when they met one Nigerians of the overflooding coming from Cameroon dams, the Gado dams and co, and they could not take proactive measures. Of course, they released it, and then water flooded many places. So it's not when the Minister for Water Resources, Bello Goronyo, State for Water Resources, was talking about some states beginning to experience flooding from April this year due to the intensity of rain in some state. We had intensity of rain in some state earlier. That now you're hearing about Lagos and Abuja because it is right now July. But in April, we already had states experiencing flooding. We had Adamawa, Niger State, Nasarawa, Kebbi, Borno, not just the FCT. States that are affected. Akwa Ibom is affected. Benue is affected. So the report is coming on right now because proactive measures, most times the warning is sent, but the federal government, it's just rain now, rain will fall. Remember, there are some very, very places that were close to the FCT that have witnessed high flooding. In fact, it moved houses, moved cars, talking about Trademore, and some places in Efaba State, also some places in Apo witness high drainage. Due to the blockages in the drainage system in most cities in Nigeria.
Okay, hold your thought for a minute. You just talked about blockage now. Bright, he just talked about blockage now. And he talked about the fact that proactive measures are always not being taken when it is not time for flood yet. But then control measures, all right, is what Nigeria damage control. I don't know why the system is used to damage control. They wait until the damage happens before they begin to put up measures. He just talked about the blockage of drainage. Don't you think the Ministry of Environment, have so much to do so that they can go around? I don't know, but then I see people doing what they are not supposed to do and not doing what they are supposed to do most times. Don't you think this thing can be controlled? And this flood happening every year, the happening of flood, the flooding, the yearly flooding, don't you think it can actually be controlled? Even if it is not totally, stopped, don't you think it can actually be minimized?
Actually, what I think is that it's actually a lapse from the end of the Ministry of Environment, because we know these areas that are prone to flooding. But every year we keep experiencing these kind of things because no preventive measure is being taken. Like, for example, we have some states that are taking upon themselves to build water storm projects. We have the governor of Edo State doing a wonderful job with the water storm project around the state. We have Delta State. Yes. The president of Governor Godwin Obaseki.
There was one time we saw a video making round when his car was submerged. His entourage was submerged in flood.
That happened in a road under construction, actually.
I'm seeing high flood risk state. Edo is amongst it today in today's.
That was mentioned as a risk rate. You understand? It's a warning that it's a high flood risk.
Yeah, I think they have it
under control.
You understand? That's what we're saying.
I'm just talking about preventive measures that people going out of their way to make sure that these things it's possible that it will happen. But what do you do to prevent it? You before the rain comes, you make moves, you make steps to prevent these things. But what does the Ministry of Environment do? They wait till every rainy season before they start giving us warnings that so please be careful. Then might flow. But we don't see them working. I've never seen the federal government running around during the dry season preventing this flood from causing this
check this.
They don't do it, but once it comes to rainy season, we see them announcing
that's the damage control
but
thing.
we don't see them making proactive measures to arrest this thing from escalating anytime it happens. They always wait for Cameroon to open the dam before they start running up and down to say they want to curtail the flood.
What happened in the FCT in June 24, where there was a heavy downpour, a Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, that's NIHSA, already told FCT that, hey, you see what happened in Trademore Estate where 2 deaths were recorded and houses were submerged in June 24, this same year, before this July that we're in now, June 20. So if NISA comes out to tell you, hey, you can see what happened in Trademore, that means there's a high intensity of flooding. Why didn't the federal government take it seriously? Just about a few weeks ago.
That's it.
So if people died in Trademore Estate and houses were submerged, you're waiting for more people to die, more houses to be submerged, cars to be carried away, for people to run away from the same estate before you start taking proactive measures.
For example, now I can tell you about Lagos State. For example, Lagos State can use as an example to buttress what you're trying to say right now. Lagos State early this year and late last year, we saw when the government was demolishing houses, trying to create way for their
houses that were standing on water.
They were blocking their waterways. They tried making this preventive move, but they got a lot of backlash from citizens that they are going after a certain ethnic group. They are demolishing. That the government was not compassionate and all. But now look at what they are facing.
No, I think
the move that the government made. This shows you that the government could have done more.
That can also be balanced.
They were compassionate. They were so compassionate that they didn't want to do so much because they don't want to be seen in a bad light.
But then, if government is doing something like that, there are ways these things are being done. As someone is living in a place for over 10 years, and you've been watching, if you're looking at the state of the economy and the kind of country that we find ourselves, if you want to demolish a building, at least relocate the people.
Sacrifices must be made. I know the government has to
you may not be able to do a full compensation, but then the people should be compensated at least so that they can relocate to somewhere else. And it won't be bad, because if you see people building houses like that and nobody told them after several years, it means the people who were supposed to tell them are also at fault, because sometimes people are deceived into buying lands where they are not supposed to buy. You understand? So if the federal government or the authorities want to do demolition, the people should be properly compensated, because we are all citizens and we know how the country is actually faring at
all
this
it
very
takes is
particular
planning.
point in
You
time.
locate that area to another place. Build houses for them as compensation. Take them to reset.
Take them
for example, we have the Apple settlements in Abuja.
Resettlement. I like that word.
That was done because they moved them from a certain area that they had to demolish that time. You understand? I can't remember the year.
That's beautiful.
When Erufai demolished some
you understand?
places of course, he gave resettlement to the indigenous Baggy. Let's be specific on it.
Yes.
Now, not everybody has that privilege to be resettled in Abuja.
Okay, the original indigenous
were resettled
as an example.
And remember, most of these indigenous do not want to live where they are. The Durumi is there. It would have been demolished for over years. The Apo Duse village has been resettled. This particular village is experiencing flooding, and they don't want to go. Sometimes federal government comes with tractors. The chief's old men will come out and say, please, we were still here. So sometimes, like you said, federal government acts compassionate.
All right.
These people, when their area gets flooded, they'll start shouting that.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Coded. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Bright. Well, you guys are looking so good, man. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a wonderful Friday. But don't do, they know what I'm talking about.
We'll talk politics after this.
All right. Thank you very much for staying there. Despite the downpour, we are here to make you feel good. Well, we will come on your way again, and that's going to be Monday. This is what we do to make sure you are good. If you are not informed, you are deformed, and you have the right to know what's happening in your countries. The reason we are here. Bye-bye for now, and have a wonderful weekend. My name is Ramsey Enoch.